So we set up a call, and yesterday we spent an hour together, and I just walked him through all of our frameworks. And by the end, he was like, wow, that was like a little mini masterclass. And I'm like, yeah, man, I want to see you win.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Fail with Fire. This podcast really just talks about all the failures that lead to the fires, which are the catalysts to change. I am Phoenix High, your podcast host, CEO, and co-founder of AdBeacon, my favorite first-party and data attribution and optimization platform. And today I welcome, drumroll, the coolest, Taylor Frame. Taylor, welcome to the podcast.
Let's get after it.
He just grilled me. So Taylor Frame, we're so pumped to have you. You are an agency partner of ours, but also just like kind of a beast in the space. So if you guys haven't heard of Taylor, this is your time. You get to know him on a more personal level. Before we even get to that, let me go ahead and give you his official bio because everyone cares about official, right? So Taylor Frame is the co-owner and chief revenue officer of Best Practice Media, a digital growth shop. So with a passion for helping entrepreneurs hit their goals, Taylor has consulted and worked on over 400 plus e-commerce companies, ranging from startups to enterprise level accounts. Under his leadership, the agency has launched and scaled over 100 brands to consistent six-figure months, finding creative solutions and shifting the e-commerce world. So that is the official introduction. My introduction is Taylor, alongside all those really cool accolades, is one of the most, I would say, the biggest cheerleader if you're in his corner. Like every time I hang out with you, you shoot me a text message going, I'm so thankful for that interaction. Thank you so. And it's genuine. No one does that.
Really?
No one does that.
Wow.
Very much appreciate that. And sometimes I don't have time to really go in depth as a response, and I'm pretty cold via text, but I'm really in my mind going, wow, this guy's such a good person.
Oh, well, thank you. That's so nice of you to say that.
Yeah. You know what? It's not nice for me to say. It's nice for you to do. I think that's the better way of going about it.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that's super interesting that I learned really early on in this business, and I started out in enterprise sales, right? So I was working with really big e-com brands like J. Crew, Williams Sonoma, Restoration Hardware, heavy hitters. And what I learned really early on is that even at that big scale, it is a person-to-person business. And I really think most people forget that. And so I lean into that.
But it's so much further than just a person-to-person business. Oh, first of all, you're correct. That's why you're great at networking. That's why you're great at even the sales side, because it's genuine. You're not trying to get something out of someone. You're just going, hey, if there's a need, let me fill it. But going back to the person aspect, people don't get that. I think we went to a conference. We met actually at a conference. We'd known each other, but then we officially met. And I was telling you, I can smell desperation in the air, right? I was telling you, you smell it in here. It's like a shark in the water with blood.
Yeah.
The people that do well in the space, in my opinion, are the ones that aren't there for any purpose other than to get to know the person. And if at the end of the day you like the person, then whatever they provide is something that you're going to be aligned with, rather than just going hey, did you know that I have an agency that'll make you X amount of, it's like the DMs and Twitter, and you're like, bro, get out.
I feel that in such a big way. One of the things that I have tried really hard to do, and it's difficult, is everyone that talks to me, I try to give them some level of value, whether you work with me or not. So let me share just this quick little story.
Please do.
I was on a couple different podcasts kind of breaking down what we do for brands, and we're all about acquisition. So our specialty is, hey, you've got something to sell. I'm going to get you a new customer, and I'm going to get you that new customer as profitably as possible, given the setup of your shop, right? So that's what we do. We just do acquisition. We're not nurture marketing. We don't do email or SMS. We're just full acquisition funnels. That's our vibe. So I was walking through some of this stuff on another podcast, And this guy from Hong Kong reached out to me with these really cool, like 3D printed shoes. And he's like, hey man, I don't think that I can afford you guys, but I need some help. And I was like, cool, man. So we set up a call, and yesterday we spent an hour together, and I just walked him through all of our frameworks. And by the end, he was like, wow, that was like a little mini masterclass. And I'm like, yeah, man, I want to see you win. And like, that's kind of the energy that I'm trying to bring to the space is like, obviously there's people that are going to try to take advantage of that, but most people are wanting to get that collaboration, wanting to work together. And then the crazy thing is that leads to a lot of business for our agency, which is always fun.
Business will come, money will come and follow. If you have a good heart and you're pure in terms of like what your direction is, people will come to you. They want to work with you. So perfect example. First of all, love that because I'm from Hong Kong, just to let you know. Love that. And also too, like always give more than you receive. I don't know if I ever told you, I wanted to get my hands tattooed. Everyone in my life thinks I'm psycho for doing this, but I wanted one hand at the top to say give and then inside receive and then flip it the other way because you should never always take and you should never only give, right? You should be able to give and learn to receive. And I think it's a beautiful way to go about business, but about life too. Like if I can't provide you anything in this interaction, then I'm doing you a disservice. And I think it's also really important for me to recognize that and go, hey, like, look, I had a recent conversation with someone about this. Like we were on a call and I'm like, look, I don't think it can do anything for you. However, we can be friends. And I would love to be in your corner and pump you up. And that person just shut down. And he's like, bye. And I'm like, but that's what you did. You planted a seed where I know where you are now. And when you need me, I don't want to help you. Right?
Orly.
I don't like you. Why? Therefore, I won't help you. It's really that simple, guys. Like, but yeah, no. And what I will say about you, Taylor, it was kind of funny. First of all, we very much are picky with who comes onto this podcast. We being myself. It's so funny. Like we're like, how can I get on this podcast? Or and I'm like, I need to like you. And then back down to a lot of people ask, at least me, how do I get more speaking gigs? Like, how do I get up there? And to your point, you get all this business, which by the way, I might have somebody for you. You get all this business coming in, right? And the reason why they like you and then they interact with you, et cetera, it's the same thing with speaking. I have never once asked to speak at a conference. I've never reached out and been like, hey, like I've been asked. And that's not because I'm the best in the world. I think that's because I care about people. And that's what I really appreciate about you is when we first started speaking, you really dove in. You and TJ dove in and were really cool people. And then you're also very straightforward. You're not a pushover. If you don't like something, you'll straight up tell me. But every person you interact with, including Mitch Barham, connect and you align. I could just speak so many great things about you, and I'm grateful to have you on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like I did not expect that. So all the love, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, like on the AdBeacon side, we're thrilled to have you, but I think it really comes back down to the people side. That's really where it comes to. So I want to get back to the people, and you've been married for quite some time, and I'm sure your wife is like a spitfire and awesome. And if we were at a barbecue and I was working out and hanging out and I'm becoming friends with your wife and she goes, I need you to meet Taylor. How would she introduce you? How would she say, what do you do for work? Like, what would she say?
Yeah. So my wife would say he helps people online. He helps people on the internet. And really, like, she doesn't understand the fact that I'm driving rampant commercialism, but I'm all about it. Like, let's go. If anyone out there wants to buy some stuff on Facebook ads. That's what we're all about.
Is there anybody in your family that's like vehemently against what we do or what you do rather?
No one, like, they don't really understand it, right?
Okay.
Like, my brother's a chemical engineer. My other brother works in commercial real estate and finance. My sister manages Airbnbs. Like, they don't really understand what I'm doing, the space I'm in. Like, and my mom is like, oh, that's cute, honey.
Ah, you press buttons. That's nice. Yeah, which is exactly what we do. We're just professional button clickers and button pushers. But the reason why I asked that is like my brother and my sister. My sister pays everything in cash. She wants nothing tracked. You met her briefly, I think. And my brother, he could care less. Him and I are very similar. They're both doctors, and they're very careful with what they do and the government. And I think that's fair. And then meanwhile, I have a tracking solution for advertisers. And now I'm like tracking everything. And I know every move you make. And I know your first and last name, your IP address. And I'm utilizing it for retargeting for companies to be able. First and foremost, let me just clarify something. Friends, if they're on this, like the government's listening to me, I'm sure they are. And you know what? Deal with it. Maybe clean up your act. But
I am all about sharing all the info.
yeah,
I'm like, I want the most targeted ads in my feed. People are like, do you can accept all these cookies? I'm like, yes. Give me all the data.
I'm hungry. Give me the cookie. Yeah, 100%. And you know what? Like all shit aside, and I'll get off the data topic, but if you don't want people to know things about you, there's a way to do it. And I've done it because I understand the data industry. So you'll never find any of my assets. You'll never know who I am. You don't even know who knows that Phoenix Ha is my actual name right now. Who knows? Maybe I'm AI. So, but yeah, I mean, I love, start with that. I love that your wife is kind of like, main thing is the people that love us, the people who care about us, could give a flying shit about what we do for work. And they're just like, yeah, this is my person. He does things. Yeah, bye.
Totally. And on the data piece, I think what people forget is like Facebook, Google, Twitter, Pinterest. You don't pay to be on those platforms. Like, think how much value they add to your life every single day for free.
Well,
And like,
the inverse of that is, what are they going to get out of you? Your data. They don't.
Totally.
Business is mutually beneficial, right? So you're never going to do something unless you get something out of it. I actually just had a demo with somebody recently, and they're like, yeah, we're just here to get people to try out the platform for free. And I'm like, my skepticism comes up because I'm like, but you want usage data. There's always something. And if you're going to blindly go into something, assume that everyone just wants you to play around and post your status, you're joking.
Yeah, totally. I think it's interesting to know both sides, right? Because look, if you don't want to share your data, then you need to get off Facebook. Like you need to get off TikTok. But like you can't have both. And this is one of my same like things I talk a lot about is you can't have everything. You can't have total privacy and then be connected to 4,000 of your friends online. Like it just doesn't work that way. And so I think people need to understand there's trade-offs, and that's okay. You can make that trade-off cognizant of what's going on.
Yeah, you nailed it. Well, speaking of trade-offs, which has nothing to do with this transition. So let's talk about failures.
I got a good one.
Right? I mean, okay, so the whole premise of this podcast, I just dropped something. The whole premise of this podcast is really just to discuss failures. I think when I came into this space originally, and I was still very green, still am, is everyone was always pulling up their like screenshots and talking about how much money they make. And then there's like Lamborghiniville. It was like not Margaritaville, it was Lamborghiniville. And I'm like, okay, and bottle service. And I go, okay. But then I would hear the whispers in the back end of like, oh, that person owes me $50,000, or that person's not as like legit as they say. And for me, I go, well, that's okay. I'd rather us talk about them struggling than them succeeding, because in my life, there were some serious catalysts that changed my DNA as a person to be who I am today and to be who I will be down the road. And people like yourself that are successful, I just want to like piece that apart if you allow it, because for those of us that are constantly watching these screenshots, you feel helpless, especially during July to now. Everyone's losing, but everyone's saying that they're winning.
Totally.
So please walk us through a failure and the fire and catalyst to change. It can be personal, financial, professional. We don't care. We just want to learn about Taylor. So please, if you would just bless us with some truth.
All right. I've got a good one. I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days. I wanted to cue something up that I think would add a ton of value for anyone listening. So the first thing is I want to start with a principle. And the principle is that growth is not linear. Like it's not, you start at point A and you get to point B and it's a straight line. It is the most windy, up and down, huge win, huge losses, emotional journey for anybody. And like, that's what you need to take away from this is that we are fighters in the ring. And sometimes we're up a little bit and sometimes we're down, but you're still taking blows and it's hard. And like, you've got to show up. And so like, no matter what's happening in your life, when you look at someone, all you see is their highs. Like, I'm not going to go on LinkedIn. I mean, some people now are like on Facebook, LinkedIn, like posting some of their losses, but most of the time, all you hear about are the wins, right? And people don't understand that that journey is bloody and it's hard and it takes a lot of grit and determination. And so here's a fun little story. So when I started my agency, we had 2 clients and I was doing sales. My partner then at the time was doing delivery and we just hustled our butts off and like got one client after the next and we grew the thing. And then we're like, okay, we're like tapped out, just the 2 of us, we got to hire someone, and then we hired someone and we did. So we were doing that for like 2 years and trying to figure this thing out. And at the time, I somehow got us into a really premium fitness franchise that had like, at the time, I think they had 300 locations. Okay. So we're this small agency. At this time,
like Ruru Remen or like Shlu Shlu Sleben?
No, they had fitness studios, little box studios. And they were in the Pilates space.
God. Pilates Plus? Okay, I won't keep guessing.
So anyways, I somehow finagle us in there, right? Okay. At this time in our journey, it was me and my partner, and I think we had 6 employees, right? So we get in here and we start coaching them on some Facebook advertising and like building funnels. And they're like, wow, you guys really know what you're talking about. And we're like, yeah. They're like, would you want to be one of our vendors? And we're like, oh my gosh, all day long, right? So they're like, all right, take it slow. And we're like, we don't need to take it slow. Like, we got this, right? So we go in the first month, we onboard like 10 studios, okay? And once again, we're a small team. And at the time, we were doing like 80% e-com, 20% like services, right? And e-com's very different than services. They're totally different strategy. So we jump in, we get 10 studios. We get some really good results. The next month, like 30 studios join. So now we're up to like 40 studios. And this is on our little team of humans, right? And then still get good results. Next month, we're up to like 60 studios. We like quadrupled our revenue in the business in like 2 months. And we're like, we're going to do it. Like, we're going to take over this business. We're going to have 200 studios under retainer. We're going to be driving Lamborghinis. Like, there is no way that this goes bad, right? I'm like, let's go. Telling my wife.
For me, it's Lamborghinis.
What's funny is like, I actually don't care about supercars at all. But like, at this story, I was like, yeah. No, the biggest thing was like, hey, man, we're going to be able to like put a bunch of money in savings. I'll have college funds set up for my kids. Like, we're doing this thing, right? Month 4 rolls around and there starts to be a couple studios in our group. There was like, I think it was like 60 studios at the time that are not getting good results. And we're like, ooh. So we're like trying to figure things out, but we're playing this hard game between we have to do what corporate says, but the stuff that's in the local studio in like Bozeman, Montana isn't relevant. So we're like trying to play this middleman, right? And like we're running some stuff that's like not totally approved by corporate. And then like some drama starts to happen. Anyways, like cracks start to form in this relationship across all of these brands. And at this time, like my team's overwhelmed, me and my partner are overwhelmed. We're like, oh my gosh, we're working as much as we can to keep all this business going because we're bringing in a bunch of cash. We're trying to hire somebody like as fast as we can, right? And in the course of 45 days, we went from 60 studios to 0 studios.
When you said month 4, because we know that in agency land it's 3 months, and then that third month, like something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And you went from 60 studios to 0. I need a breath. Hold on.
I was like, I fell apart. I was like, what just happened? Like, and what happened is the mob, like all these studios talk to each other. They're all friends. They're all texting each other. And like the mob turned and we were done. Like overnight. And half of those studios were still getting great results. But they were like jumping to the next hot thing. And it was almost like being ushered out of the building, like after you had failed, right? Being like, okay, hey, have fun out there. Like you didn't do it. And it was this really interesting moment where I had to differentiate between who is Taylor, right? Am I an agency owner? Like, is that all I am? Like, am I defined by my work? Or are there other things in my life that are equally as valuable that I bring to the table? And it forced me to like reevaluate my principles. Like, am I judging myself by how many employees I have and how much revenue I do and how good I am at work? Or am I judging myself by, am I honest? Am I kind? Do I try my best? You know, am I creative? Am I collaborative, right? Like principle-based living. And it took me like 6 months to kind of recover from this thing where I had to redefine myself. And I'm like, I am not just an agency owner. Like I am much more than that. And this failure, because it was an absolute failure, kind of was the catalyst to push me through that. And there was a bunch of downhill consequences of that catalyst. Like there were 2 employees in our shop that left after that because they were really frustrated. You know, we were all doing our best, but we had never managed 60 franchises at once. Like, and all these people expect like full-on account support, but they want to pay you like an intern. But at scale, it works. But in the minutia of the day-to-day, it does not work. So there was all of these important lessons, and it really crushed me. I was like, am I going to be able to succeed in this space? Because it's so cutthroat. And it took me about 6 months to recalibrate and be like, you know what? The fact that you were in the ring, taking the blows, you know, making the hits, like actually in the fight, that's what matters. It wasn't about the outcome. And I walked away from that a lot calmer, a lot more focused on building the right team, building the right processes, saying no to the wrong prospects, right? And it made me a much better person. But man, those like 6 to 8 months that we were going through that, very dark.
I love that you brought this example up, and like, thank you, because you're saying it like, oh yeah, you know, and I can feel the heaviness, but that's heavy. Like you're over here planning the fact that you have like a savings for your children's college funds, like you think you're being set up. And it's so funny because there's kids out there or adults that are setting up Shopify stores left and right, drop shipping, or they're setting up, you know, their t-shirt company, they scale it, and then they hit this peak or this plateau rather. And then they feel like they're not worth anything. And the self-worth thing is at the pinnacle point in everyone's life where you go, am I just Taylor, aka agency, or am I Taylor Frame, father, husband, man, friend, brother, I'm sure. I mean, that's all these things. I had that very similar moment as well. And like knowing who you are is so powerful. Like if you don't know who you are yet, I would recommend exploring that, because if your DNA is intertwined with your career, it's a dangerous game to play.
Yeah.
It's
so dangerous.
It's so dangerous. I'm so glad you highlighted this. There was also, it's just a very good, like, it's funny you said, am I not meant for this space? It's really competitive. It's so funny you say that. And then the sales side, let me highlight the sales side. This is why I love what you said. You're the head of sales, right?
Yeah.
You there's often a disconnect in an agency where the head of sales will sell something and then fulfillment will be upset with sales because you're like, what did you do? You oversold.
Yeah.
You kind of did that with this client. You oversold and expected, and I wouldn't say you underdelivered. You overdelivered in the beginning and then you underdelivered later, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
B2B, by the way, or like these types of service type industries are tough because they don't get it. They don't get that lead flow will decrease in certain seasons. They don't understand that sometimes you don't grow 20% month over month. Sometimes you decline. But if you look at the full timeline, you've increased by 30%, right? Like they don't understand that. And then when they start talking to each other, it's like high school. It's like, I don't like her. You don't like her? Well, I don't like her. Well, I don't like her because you don't like her. And then now we're all gone.
That's exactly what happened. But I want to go back to what you first said. There's this principle that you cannot out-earn your self-worth.
Mm.
I'm going to say that again. You cannot out-earn your self-worth. And what I mean by that is like if you aren't calm and at peace with who you are and have a firm understanding of the principles you live by and the things that you stand for, you could make $1 trillion and you are going to be miserable.
I love that.
Like it's, and you can see this across every industry. Like the people and you meet them, they have a calm steadiness about them. And they're not trying to do anything that's outside of their realm of like who they are and what they believe in, right? And you're drawn to those people because they're just calm and they're steady and they like know who they are, right? And they can be successful, they can be but they're just stoked.
Yeah.
And I always come back to that. You cannot out-earn your own self-worth.
Well, you can if you don't have any self-worth because then there's nothing, right? You think that your self-worth is tied to it's so true though. Like I don't know what it is about me. I don't know what because but for some reason I go to conferences and a lot of people just like pour out what they're feeling to me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Not realizing I'm a little colder than you would think, but
Where the all black getup didn't give
it's
them
not
that
worth
emotion.
the chains, nothing. But yeah, no, I have often we go to these conferences or I'm hanging out with some of the quote unquote coolest people in a space and it's hollow. Like you can feel the hollowness in there or you see it in their eyes. And for me, like it hurts me because yeah, you might be making a lot of money. Yeah, you might be scaling, but like, whoa, I know the crash is coming and I'm
Yeah.
anticipating it. To your point, like you can't out earn your self-worth. I think that's beautiful. You just have to know what that self-worth is. And then you said something great where you're like, we said no to certain clients. That's actually a lot to do with who you are principle-wise. So a great example of this, I'll bring it back, is I have a co-founder for AdBeacon. And, we built AdBeacon from the ground up together, bootstrapped, and I have to trust this person, right?
Yeah.
I have to trust because my face is everywhere for AdBeacon. And when I was working with him prior to that, I saw his character and that's what made me align with him. And that's what makes me align with you, Taylor, is we had a client that was awful, who would scream at every single one of my staff. I had 2 staff quit because of this client.
Oh my gosh.
And I was desperately telling him at the time, like, we need to fire this client. And he's like, nope, nope, deal with it, whatever.
Yeah.
Finally, we go back to our core values, and core values we had always like do what's right, right? Right is relative and subjective to what you believe, but do what's right.
Yeah.
And I sat back down and I looked at him and I said, okay, let's break this down. They did this, 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 and this. If you do not let or fire this client, I will do it regardless because my dignity, my leadership is intertwined with the ability for other people to trust that I will do the right thing, that I have self-respect, and that I will stand up for other people. This goes back to you being the head of sales and for you, co-owning an agency, all these things in leadership. And then also like people want to follow you and your advice down the road of whatever you're going to do because of your character. And because of that, we not only fired that client, we fired another client and another client, and our sales doubled because we started bringing in good clients. They were challenging, love challenging. But if you're a shitty ass client, go kick rocks. Because you're hurting people more than helping. I don't give a shit anymore about your revenue, about scaling. You're demotivating me. Why am I going to break my back at, 2 a.m. during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, when I should be eating, Thanksgiving dinner? I sacrificed so many Thanksgiving dinners for your ass.
Yeah.
So as a leader, I really appreciate your stance on that. Maybe you had to learn, right? You had to learn. We all had to learn along the way, but it's very important. I hope your staff hears this episode for you, because I think, I'm sure they already see it, but I think like on the other side of things.
We've come so far. We've been doing this now for almost 10 years. And during that time, so many crucial lessons. But the biggest one is like, nothing gets solved if you're getting angry at each other. And we actually have, when we onboard a new client, we have a slide that says agreements. And one of the things on the slide says, anger has no place here. And I say, we are going to show up as absolute professionals. We're going to be kind. We're going to be collaborative. And if we don't know the answer, we will figure it out. Like, that's who we are. But the minute you start coming to the calls and pointing fingers and being like, you guys did this or you did that, I'm like, we're done. Like, we're not playing that game. And when people talk about like partnerships, we're like, we're in this with you. Like, we're managing hundreds of thousands of dollars every single month for your brand. So you have to trust us. In the same time, look at what we're doing. Look at the data. And we've gotten, thanks to AdBeacon, we now can we can go head to head with anybody. And we're like, boom, boom, boom. This is irrefutable data. And our customers are like, oh, like we had a customer just this last month that says, hey, I don't think this is working. I'm going to stop. And I said, really? And I sent him this deep dive loom where I overviewed everything in his account. He's like, oh, yeah, let's keep going.
Oh, people don't know what they don't know. Speaking of partnerships, you're right. So for those listening, I think that they should take a playbook out of Taylor's, because this is what I believe partnership should be. Like, what we have is a partnership. I have a great partnership with Mitch as well, which is why I'm so pumped that you two got along and like hit it off. But, there's a lot of people who say partnerships. I'm going to do air quotes for those who aren't watching. Yeah. And what I mean by partnerships, they're like, okay, what can you get me? And then they also go like referral fees, and which is fine. I won't get into that because Taylor always gets on my ass about how I don't want to take referral fees and whatever. We'll pay everybody else. I don't mind. I digress. My point is that Taylor hits me up and goes, how can we do more? What can we do to integrate? And then when I'm over here going, or he goes, hey, I have a question. My team needs help with something. I make sure that I hop in. I make sure that I get on the call. Because the same level of respect is reciprocated, and the same level of enthusiasm for the partnership is reciprocated. Wow, we're gonna win. If you're doing this half-ass partnership shit, please leave. Please leave. Exit. We've left. No one needs.
Here's this crazy thing. So over the last like 8 years, we have been one of the agencies that works with, I would think, probably more female founders than anyone out there. And our agency is female owned and operated. So my CEO is Claire Winslow, who's my partner, right? Most of my team's female. I'm really, really big on what's cool about e-com is there's a big percentage of shops that are female owned and operated, which is really cool. Cause I have a daughter too. Like, I want people to be able to like rise up, right? And create their ideal lives. And one of the cool things is I can look back at how many husbands we've retired. Look, seriously, like where their wives or girlfriends will start a shop, grow it to a certain stage where the husband can quit his job and then come work for the wife. This happens so much. I think I've retired probably 20 to 25 husbands.
You're
right?
welcome, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome, dude. Right. Here's the point that I'm making with this is that the shops that come in, and one of the reasons I love working with women is because they're like, I don't have time to manage everything. You do your thing. I trust you. I've hired you for your expertise. Report to me so I know what's going on and update me. But let's go. Those female founders grow shops 3 to 4 times faster than most men. Because they come in, they don't get obsessed with like daily sales or daily ROAS. And by the way, if you're beating up your agency over daily sales and daily ROAS, you are missing the mark. You have no idea how this machine works. So word to the wise on. But these women would come in, meet with us, give us direction, we'd collaborate, and then we'd run our playbooks. And they would grow like infinitely faster. And then the men would come in and they would nitpick every single thing.
Yep.
And they just did it. They couldn't get it. And so there's this interesting play. It's like the women like intrinsically understood this, but the men couldn't get it. They want to take a look at everything. I want to see under the hood. I want to see every little thing. And then they'd break it. Every single time they would break it.
So you're saying that the men micromanaged and the women trusted. And I'm just simplifying. I'm really curious.
That is exactly what happens.
So funny.
Yeah, and I don't know if it has to do with masculine or feminine. I don't know what it is. I'm just calling the shots.
You might be right, because the client that I fired is a woman, but she tried to be in her masculine pretty hard. Like, in the sense of like, she tried to bulldog me. And I'm like, I'm a bigger bulldog. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
But she printed out all the ad results from Meta, like such old school, like, and then printed them out and like flipped through them and micromanaged the shit out of me. Didn't know how to read the data. And it's so funny you said it, because like now looking back, like a lot of the men, you're absolutely right. It's not always the case, right? There's exceptions to the rule, but like you were so right. So funny story for you. And then we'll transition to hot takes. But one year, this is like very, very, very beginning of my career. I was speaking to this guy and he came to the agency. So basically he had his own mini agency, and then he like white labeled us. And we're doing it, and he kind of understands ads, but kind of doesn't understand ads. And I rebuilt his entire account. We're going to 2 return on ad spend. It was killing it because it's jewelry. 2 is incredible.
2 is incredible.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, we're good. I rebuilt it. I did it over the weekend. And the next day, or like the Monday after, I come in and they're at like a 0.2 return. And I'm like, what happened? And I was like, my heart dropped. And this is the beginning of my career. So like, I'm really hungry to prove myself.
Totally.
And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking. And I go into the change history, and this guy just changed everything based off of what he thought. Mind you, every call we ever had never addressed me directly. He had to speak to the man. He never spoke to me.
Oh my gosh.
And it got to the point where I was so mad. I got on this phone call, speaking of fail to fire. I got on this phone call and I yelled at him. And I was like, yes, you did. Da, 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 da. I was like, sharing my screen, and I just ripped him apart, and he just shut up and we left. But my then supervisor was like, okay, you can't do that. Another way to do it. But you're right. And he didn't, you know what it is? It's this lack of trust and this idea that you're supposed to lead. I'm going to deduce it down to that. This idea that you're supposed to be the authority. So therefore, if you don't have your hands in everything, you can't sign off on it.
Right.
Which is not how to lead. You need to trust the people you hired.
I mean, here's the crazy thing is like people will come out and they'll hire us. I'm like, all right, how many e-com brands have you been a part? They're like, this is my only one. I said, great. I've been on the back end of 400 brands. And that is not an exaggeration. We have worked with 400 e-com brands at all these different stages. I'm like, I know how this works. So like lean into this. This is not my first rodeo. And then I'm like, how much ad spend did you spend the last year? They're like, come up with some number, right? Even if it's a high number, they're like, $1 million. I'm like, great. That's how much we spend every single month. So like, trust that we have so many more up at bats here.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do this in a way that is going to hurt your shop. Like, we need you to win. But like, you hired us for that expertise, and like, let us run. So if there's any women out there that don't like their agency, please reach out to us, because we would love to work with you.
I love it. Yeah, you're full female agents. I love that shit. That makes me so happy. Not that you did probably on purpose. It just happened, but like, it's so great. I love it. Let's get to hot takes. That could technically be a hot take, but I would love to know, what is your hot take right now? Could be in the space, in life. We just came off of an election, so it's up to you what you want to do. But yeah, go for it. The mic is yours.
Okay, so there's this saying that comes from my business partner. He flew fighter jets, and they have this saying. I guess it's in the military: "No fast hands in the cockpit."
Yeah.
And that means when you're flying a jet, if something goes wrong, you don't freak out and try to fix it. They actually go through all these checklists and like talk to each other back and forth, and they're very deliberate about their choices. And what that does is it limits mistakes and it limits crashing the plane where you die, right? So we take that really literal here inside of best practice media. We say no fast hands in the cockpit. So clients will come to us, things will come to us in the agency, and everyone's freaking out. And I'm like, take a breath. This business is not going to be made or lost in a day. Smooth and steady. Let's figure out the best way to go. Let's talk through some options. Let's talk through some potential issues here. Let's think through it. And then let's make very deliberate, thoughtful choices. And then see what happens. And I think we're at this point as a nation, right? Slow and steady. Let's see what happens. Been a big change. A lot of people are nervous. Like, it's okay. Take a breath. Like, we got this. And then same thing with like, if you're running an e-commerce shop or you're in the agency space, like take a breath, calm down, look at options, be smart, remove the emotion from the decision. Go walk around the block, get some fresh air, being like, is this the right call? Like, we do not need to shoot from the hip. Like, we have time, right? So there's my hot take.
I like it. It's nervous energy never wins.
Never.
Never. I love that. And you know, with the election too, my hot take is don't be a dick. Like, it really just comes down to that.
Totally.
You will never know who I voted for. And it's none of your business, right? But I have a right to vote. And
Yeah.
the reason why I have a right to vote is because my mother came here as a refugee and she made her way here, built businesses, did the things that she needed to do to give me opportunities to be able to vote.
Yeah.
As a woman of color, whatever.
Hell
And
yeah.
I have the ability to vote. So don't piss on my vote. Totally. This idea that we can't be cool, I think is so divisive. And again, it's that nervous energy. And I understand that these things are very important. But
Totally.
we're alive. And if you're like, it goes back down to what you were saying about the business. Like, love that. No fast hands in the cockpit. Love it. I'm all of that because to your point, right, in the business, if you were a nervous leader, I won't trust you.
No.
And again, like if you're just pulling, the worst clients I've ever had are the ones that are like panicking nonstop. They are the problem. You are the problem. You are hindering your growth if you are a nervous leader in your business because you're going to make rash decisions. There was one client that I had that turned off the ads and he lost maybe like $20,000 that day because he just didn't realize what he was doing, the methodology, because he didn't trust. And it was this nervous energy. And then he had to come back to us and go, I screwed up. It's like, well, now we're tying our shoes in the middle of the race. Instead of just keep going, you could walk and still be faster than tying your fucking shoe. So anyway, my point back to the election stuff is regardless of who you voted for, regardless of how you feel, just know that we're alive and we're okay and we'll move on. And I wish everybody the best.
We got this.
We got this. We're all good. Well, that being said, Taylor, it has been an absolute honor to have you on here. I think that there are some serious nuggets in there that I hope people adhere to, like no fast hands in the cockpit. There's a lot of really great principles that you brought at the beginning. Your story, I think, resonates with a lot of people. And hopefully brand owners listen to this and have a different perspective. Business owners, and even those that are coming up in this space. Taylor, you're a wealth of knowledge. How can people find you? We'll have it in the show notes regardless, but how can people contact you?
Yeah, the best way is we actually are just about rebuilding our website. So bestpracticemedia.com. We have a bunch of case studies, testimonials, and then there's some resources on there. And then if you want to connect with us, there's a place to fill out some information that usually goes directly to me, and I'll reach out to you and we can schedule a chat.
Schedule a chat. Yeah. I can attest they do really great work. Team's really solid. I work with them. Can't say enough great things about best practice media. And if you're really focused on acquisition, they do use AdBeacon. So if you're looking for a solution already built in to a platform, already built in with an agency, you've gotten it there. So I don't know. I'm obviously a little biased, but I'm here for it. That
I
being
love it.
that being said, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and know that another great episode is on its way.
Thank you, Phoenix.
Thank you.